Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So what I want to do right now is I want to show you guys how to do some of the light and shadow stuff on how to create some of those effects that gives a little bit of sense of depth. So the tools we're going to be using, you're going to find it on your toolbar. If you have your screen a little bit larger setup than mine, you're going to see more tools here. But even if they aren't there, they're generally hiding underneath those little triangles that you see in every corner. Now, the tool I'm going to be using, they're going to be the dodge tool and the burn tool. The dodge tool looks like a little black lollipop. The burn tool looks like a little hand making a circle. Now, if you can't find them, they're going to be hiding underneath the blur tool. The blur tool looks like a teardrop. I'm going to go to the dodge tool first. With the dodge tool, when I select it, you're going to find out that the adjustment that happens here, where our tool adjustments are almost exactly the same as with a brush. We have the option over here to adjust the size of the actual tool because it is a brush. So one of the things we're going to mess around with on this one is size. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to adjust the hardness. Now the hardness before was at 100%. What does that mean? That means if I use this brush right to the edge of that circle, I'm going to get a really, really crisp edge, a crisp line. If I move that down to 0, I'm going to get a really soft line. I'm going to zoom in on this picture and show you exactly what I mean. So right now I'm going to use the dodge tool, and I'm going to go select the skin to start with. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this brush, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the skin here. Okay. And as I go over the skin, you might notice that it's getting lighter and lighter. The more I go over it, the lighter and lighter it gets. Now, if I zoom into this, you can see how it does this. And it's not really that big a difference, but you're going to see it kind of gives you a little bit of a hard edge. So if I click multiple times with that, you can see how it sort of cuts into it and sort of makes a hard edge to that. I'm going to go in my history over here and undo all of that. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the dodge tool. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do almost the same thing, but I'm going to lower the hardness to, let's say, like 15%. Now, when I go over this, and even when I click in one spot like this, you're going to notice it's a little softer. It's a little bit more like an airbrush. And to use the dodge tool or the burn tool, what I would tell you to do is keep your hardness down under 20%. Now, what you're going to do with this is you're going to use this to do some shading. Now, one of the things you could do is like what I just started to do, is you can brighten up one side. And in this case, the top of the arm, I'm going to kind of drag my brush over it, and I'm going to make some of this a little bit brighter. Now, that's what the dodge tool does. When I switch over to the burn tool, which is like the little hand, it also is a brush. You can adjust it. I would bring the hardness down to something under 20% at least. The burn tool makes things darker. So if I keep going over this color down here, it's going to kind of almost give it a little bit of a sunburn. And what you see right away is that it gives a little depth to the object that I'm trying to burn and dodge. So it's a way that you can add a little bit of shading. Now, how should you go about shading things? Well, for me, you want to kind of think about things that sort of pop out at you, things that are sort of bulging out at you, things sort of in the center. They can be a little bit lighter. So I'll take my dodge tool, and what I'll do is I'll kind of dodge a little bit on her cheeks, her forehead. I'm going to make my brush a little smaller. I'll dodge a little bit on the tip of her nose, on her chin. And the dodging over there will make that a little bit lighter. Then I'll go ahead and I'll switch to my burn tool. My burn tool I can adjust. I can make the hardness, again, keep it down beneath 20. Make this just a little smaller. Around the edges, and in areas that sort of sink in, like around her eyes, underneath her nose, on the edges of her face, and especially up here where like the head is sort of shadowed by the helmet. I want to come in there and burn a little bit. That'll make those areas look a little darker, add a little bit of an effect like shading. So by adding a little bit of a burn and a dodge to this thing, I've created a little more depth and make this pop out. Now, I might want to do that on the helmet too, and I'm going to drag my tool over the helmet, and you're going to notice nothing is really changing. That's because you have to make sure you go to the layer and select the layer that you're working on and make sure you're on the correct layer. I know that I told you to create a different layer for every color. In this case, I'm going to go to my layer for the gold. I'll go ahead with my burn tool. What I'll do is I'm going to make the edges and the corners of this helmet just a little bit darker. And right now I can go all over the face, it's not going to do anything, and that's why I had you guys make different layers. And now what I can do is switch over again to the dodge tool, and I can create a few little highlights, sort of light reflected areas on the helmet. Now, there is no, learning what to shade and how to shade it. That's another whole lesson. But the basic idea here is if stuff kind of sticks out and bulges out, you should make it a little bit lighter. And if there are things that sort of recede back into space and, kind of are hidden or tucked away, like underneath her chin, you can go ahead and make some of those things darker. By doing a little burn and dodge to your character, you can really kind of make them a little bit more interesting and exciting looking and give it a little bit more depth. I think you can see the difference in the face and the arm versus the legs that I didn't do. And this will also be something that you could do like on the clothing. For example, I have the little toga. I already started doing some of the burning and dodging here, but I can go ahead and kind of lighten some parts. And on a light color, it's going to be harder to see, but what you will see on the lighter colors, you'll definitely see the burning. So making some of this area that's sort of hidden a little bit darker. And the more you go over it, the darker it gets. Can give the overall look of the drawing just a little bit more interest. And give it a little bit of like a 3D pop to it, make it look like it sticks out a little bit. So that is the burning and the dodging. And just to give you an example where you can go with that, I'll go ahead and open up my other finished version. And you can see on the finished version, this is fully burned and dodged. And you can see how it's added a little bit of depth and a little bit of, I guess, three-dimensional trickery to this thing, making it look a little bit more 3D. So those are the burn and dodge tools. Again, they're generally hidden beneath the blur tool. One of them is the black lollipop. This makes things lighter. The burn one makes it darker. Again, you should adjust the size up here just like a brush. The hardness itself should be less than 20%. Trust me, it'll be a nice softer look. It'll look more like airbrushed rather than hard-edged. And that